Hi, friends, and thanks for joining us for week 3 of the Courageous Heart Community Book Study for Lifted with Lindsey Hale. Super excited that you're here. I hope your book is starting to look like this with the tabs. This week, we're going through chapters 6, 7, and 8. And if you haven't read them yet, you are in for some laughter and you're in for some tears. So I'm not going to give anything away. Just be ready. It's gonna be fun. It's a good week for this for sure. So. Lindsey, I listened to a recent podcast that I think is really relevant here where you talked about perfectionism. And that's where I really want to start this week is that idea of taking off the mask that you talked about in chapter 6. How do you see perfectionism getting in the way of us living our best lives, the lives that God created us to live?
Yeah, this has been a huge obstacle for me recently. In that podcast, I kind of talk about how I never would have considered myself a perfectionist. To me, perfectionists look very different. Like I always kind of joke that I live my life very organically. I'm not a planner. I'm very off the cuff, fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. But there are other areas where I'm showing up as a perfectionist. So I really like to be pretty. I like to be put together. I like my children to look a bit put together when they go places. I want my house a certain way. If I post on social media and I have a typo, oh my gosh, which happens all the time because I'm not a detail-oriented person, I take all of that so personally, like, oh my goodness. I mean, it gives me that sick feeling in my stomach, like I have just ruined everything. I've been exposed.
Yeah.
I've been exposed. So I think it kind of goes back a little bit to last week where we were talking about that, idea of the Pinterest world and the social media piece. And so one of the things that I saw recently, a couple weeks ago, I was going through my Bible and I saw this note that said, what if instead of focusing on doing things perfectly, you focused on doing it faithfully? And that, I don't know when I wrote that note, I don't even know what scripture that it applied to. It must have just been something I write in my Bible all the time. And so I must have wrote it at church, but it hit me like, oh my gosh, instead of focusing on perfection, we focus on being faithful.
Mm.
And to me, the difference is that perfection is about me. It's about what do people think of me? How am I portrayed to the world? And instead, faith is about Him and trusting Him, and it's about serving. It's about giving selflessly through the gifts that God's given you. So how does that look for me? And even in leadership, I think so many times I like to replace now the word leadership with servant and the word serve. So instead of how can I lead best today? How can I serve best today? How can I be most faithful today and follow Jesus best today? And Jesus did serving best. He led as a servant.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Flipping that from from leadership to serving. And, there's that term servant leadership. And that's what the best leaders do, I think, is they do serve first. That's what Jesus did. He served first, and then we're to follow his example. So that's great.
Yeah. And so in leadership, to me, in the past, I've taken that so much of like, well, what do I have to offer the world today? Instead of how can I offer the world a gift that I have today? Like instead of it being about what I do, it's about who I can help, I guess, in some ways, if I saying that the way I want it to come out.
I love it. So one of the things that you write in this chapter that I think really, that really resonated with me is if you're going to live your best life, you must be courageous enough to be your truest self. And that means being unashamed of who you are and giving others the freedom to be equally authentic with their lives. With authenticity comes trust, and with trust comes the environment free of judgment and full of love. It's those kind of relationships it's in those kind of relationships that we can forgive ourselves and others and feel the grace that comes from knowing that we don't have to measure up to anyone else to be enough. And oh my goodness, that enough there. So let's talk about measuring up for a minute, because we live in this visual, vocal world where shoulds and comparisons are super hard to avoid. So what advice do you have for us to just break free from that thinking that we have to be the Pinterest perfect woman?
Yeah, that is such a self-talk. Like I should have, and it kind of comes with regrets. But I like to tell people, anytime you say I should be, or I should have, or I should go, I want you to replace the word should with the word shame, or
Mm.
ashamed. I am ashamed because I didn't. I am ashamed because I should. And again, like we've talked about in previous weeks, like God didn't create us for a life of shame. And
Right.
so I think that there's a lot of freedom and forgiveness of ourselves. And what did I do? What did I offer the world today? What,
Mm.
instead of saying I should have whatever. Okay, so let's say I actually just went through this little phase where I was like so exhausted. I have just been, it was summer here. I was like just on the hamster wheel, is what I like to say. I was just busy. I was promoting the book, doing my business, running kids everywhere, still getting used to being a mom of an infant. And so I took like 2 weeks where I literally was like, I'm not going to think about what I eat. I'm not going to think about what I watch. I'm just going to, like, I just needed to just be. And I could have sat in that. I feel ashamed because I did this. But you know what I did do? I took care of me. I took
Mhm.
care of what I needed so that I could show up as a better mom, as a better wife, as a better Christian. And I could serve in those times that I was most needed. So um, I think that um, recognizing also some of the gifts that God has given you and really finding areas and creating areas to shine in those gifts that God has given you creates, like, helps you to avoid that I should be doing. Because you know kind of relating this back, if you'll let me go here for a minute, is like when I first started getting my book edited. One of the scariest things for a recovering perfectionist is handing somebody your unedited manuscript. Now they can see that I don't know how to use a comma, which is totally true. Aaron can attest to it. I either overuse or underuse commas all the time. I maybe, use the same word too many times. Like, this is, but I know where I excel is in the ideas, and where you excel is in the details. And why can't we come together and both use those gifts that God gave us to create something that can speak to the world? So instead of saying, I should know how to use a comma, I can say, you know what, I can create the sentences and the ideas, and I can allow Erin to shine in what she does best, which is cleaning it up and making it perfect. So you could use that in so many different areas, but how can you serve with what God has given you?
And it's going to look different for you than it would for everybody else. And I think that's the thing too to remember is that we're not supposed to look like everybody else. We're made
Right.
individually.
Yeah. And how can you create opportunities? One of the things that I love to do is trying to create opportunities to find that area to shine in all aspects of your life. So, for example, I know I talk about my 12-year-old daughter a lot because, like, she's my little shadow. She's with me a lot. And I'm going to take it for as long as she'll keep hanging out with me, because
Right, right.
pretty soon she's over me. Um, but one of the things she loves to do is, she's like her mama. She likes the stage. She likes words. She loves to be on social media. She has a little makeup channel that she likes to do on YouTube, and she does a really good job of it. And so I could beat myself up because there are things that I don't do well, maybe sometimes with my boys, like playing video games. But one of the cool things that I did actually just this morning, as I said, hey, Addison, I'm looking for guests to be on my podcast. And you know what I find is that it is hard when kids go to junior high. And last year we had a big struggle with her going to junior high and some transitions. And I said, would you be willing to come on my podcast and share your point of view on how that went? And she was like, so excited. So while I don't like to sit and play video games with my 10-year-old son, and I can should and shame myself all day long, I won in the area of, oh my goodness, my 12-year-old daughter thinks this is the coolest opportunity. And so how can I use where I shine and where I show up the best to parent? Where can I do that in work? Where can I do that in community and volunteering? Where can I create those opportunities?
Love that. Love it. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's in the book or if it's in a conversation that we talked about, but the idea of um, just being with them, like you don't have to play house, you don't have to do those different things, but sometimes just being together
Hmm.
is huge, and that's what they need. Going all the way back to one of the first couple chapters, I had underlined, I can't remember which word it is now. I had underlined though, where you felt loved in your house growing up. You felt loved and safe in your home, and I think that's what kids want. They don't necessarily need all the things that we think, oh, we have to do just perfectly. You know, the Pinterest perfect party and all that kind of stuff. They want to feel loved. They want to feel safe, and we
I
can
don't
give
have
that
to
to them.
have warm chocolate chip cookies waiting for them when they
Right,
get home the first day of school. Like
right.
that's not what I'm going to do. But, and there's even seasons where I feel like I could have that conversation with myself. I'm not a great mother between the ages of 7 and 11. That's a hard stage for me. I don't know why, but I love, like, I'm a really good mom at the little kid age, and I'm loving the teenage stage. But that little middle spot there, it's hard for me. And I think if I didn't have so many kids, I don't think I'd recognize it. But I think that for me, instead of sitting there and saying, well, I should enjoy the stage more because it's not going to last forever. You know what? It's okay. It's okay that this isn't my favorite stage. I can show up my very best, and I can serve them the best I can with the talents that I have. And then, you know what? I'm going to show up and have a really fun time once they get to this next phase.
Yeah,
So,
and that may be a time too where you find other people to help mentor in different ways. I mean, that could be, or maybe it's, through sports or through different things. There may be other ways that are filling in where you're like, I don't have to do this, and that's okay.
I
That's
love
okay.
that idea. Yeah, that's absolutely true, right? I mean, actually my husband is great with that age. He loves it. And so maybe that is the dad age, like especially
Yeah,
with the boys, like they want to wrestle and they want to talk about all the bodily functions, and I am like, ugh, yuck.
yeah.
Go away.
Does that go away? Because that hasn't gone. I have a 15-year-old who is 16 this month. I don't know that that's gone
Doesn't
away.
stop, does
Just saying. Just saying.
it?
Okay. The verse I want to share this week, that I want us to take away this week, comes from the story of the woman in the well that you shared in this chapter. And it's from John chapter 4, verses 13 and 14. And Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And um, going back to that idea that we don't have to be everything to all people all the time, we don't have to be Pinterest perfect. When we find our worth and our value in Jesus, we're enough because of him. He's enough. And that's, to me, that's peace right there. It's knowing that I don't have to do anything to measure up. I just have to have him. So he's the one that fills us with joy and with peace and with life. And when we focus on him, our cup is never empty, and we can stop striving and instead just be satisfied in him, which I love. So is there anything else that you want to add before we close out this video?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it all today.
Very good. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next video. And until next time, here's to living a courageous and lifted life.